The galactic combat arena buzzed with excitement as thousands of alien spectators filled the massive stadium. Purple-skinned Zephyrians cheered from their floating platforms, while the insectoid Krelix clicked their mandibles in anticipation. Today was special. The most feared fighting force in the galaxy would demonstrate why Earth was considered the weakest planet in the known universe. Commander Vexara stepped into the arena's center, her silver armor gleaming under the artificial suns. Standing 8 feet tall, with muscles that could crush titanium, she represented the elite sisterhood of Alara, an all-female warrior society that had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single battle. Her crimson hair flowed like liquid fire down her back, and her golden eyes held the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Citizens of the galaxy, her voice boomed across the arena through translation devices. Today we settle the question once and for all. Are the humans of Earth worthy of joining our galactic community, or are they the primitive weaklings our scouts reported? The crowd erupted in laughter. For months, intercepted human broadcasts had provided endless entertainment across the galaxy. Videos of humans struggling to lift heavy objects, getting tired after running short distances, and needing tools to accomplish the simplest tasks had made Earth the laughingstock of civilized space. Vexara's lieutenant, Captain Zara Lynn, joined her in the arena. Where Vexara was tall and imposing, Zara Lynn was lean and deadly, her blue skin marked with the ritual scars of a master warrior. The human representative should arrive within the hour, she reported. Our intelligence suggests they're sending their strongest warrior. Their strongest? Vexara laughed, a sound like rolling thunder. According to our data, human males are the physically weaker gender on their planet. Their females do most of the fighting in their entertainment programs. What kind of backward world sends their weaker sex to represent them? Ambassador Thisazila of the Galactic Council stepped forward. Her tentacles writhed nervously as she addressed the crowd. The human delegation requested this combat trial to prove their species' worth. Per galactic law, if their champion defeats our finest warrior in single combat, humanity gains full membership in the Galactic Federation. And when their champion falls within seconds, Vexara declared, raising her plasma sword high, humanity will be classified as a primitive species, suitable only for observation and occasional amusement. The arena's massive screens displayed Earth's location on a galactic map. Comments from various alien species scrolled across the bottom in dozens of languages, all expressing disbelief that such a weak species had even requested membership. Look at their planet, sneered a draconian general from his VIP booth. Single moon, yellow star, water everywhere. How could such a soft environment produce real warriors? High Priestess Morgana of the Crystal Beings nodded in agreement. Our sociologists confirm that human females handle most of their species' aggressive roles. Their males spend time on something called emotional expression and child rearing. Clearly, they evolved backwards. Meanwhile, in the preparation chamber beneath the arena, a figure sat quietly in meditation. The guards who had escorted him from the transport ship whispered among themselves, barely containing their amusement. The human was smaller than any of them had expected, only 6 feet tall, with short brown hair and wearing simple black clothing. No armor, no visible weapons, no intimidating scars or ritual markings. This is their champion? Guard Captain Veltar shook her forearms in disbelief. I've seen human entertainment broadcasts. Their warriors should be massive, covered in weapons, screaming battle cries. Her companion, a reptilian Saruk, flicked her forked tongue. Perhaps this one is defective. Should we contact Earth for a replacement? The human opened his eyes, startlingly blue in the arena's harsh lighting. I can hear you, he said quietly. And no, I'm exactly who Earth sent. The guards exchanged glances. His voice carried no fear, no anger, just calm certainty. It was unsettling. What's your name, human? Veltar asked, her tone slightly less mocking. Marcus Chen, he replied, standing and performing what looked like stretching exercises. His movements were fluid, controlled, almost dance-like. I was asked to represent my species because I volunteered. Volunteered? The Sorok hissed in confusion. You're not their greatest warrior? Their military commander? Their genetic superior? Marcus smiled. And for a moment, something flickered in his eyes that made both guards take an unconscious step back. No. I'm a high school science teacher from California. I coach the wrestling team and help run a martial arts program for kids. The guards stared at him in stunned silence. Earth had sent a teacher? Someone whose job was watching over young beings? This was either the ultimate insult, or their species truly was too primitive to understand what combat meant. Above them, the arena's announcer began the formal introductions, representing the Sisterhood of Valara, winner of over 300 combat trials, destroyer of the Andromedian fleet, conqueror of the Helix Nebula, Commander Vex Ara, the undefeated. The crowd's roar was deafening. Vex Ara strode into the arena's center, her plasma sword crackling with energy that could slice through a battleship's hull. She raised her free hand, and her loyal followers throughout the galaxy sent waves of cheering that nearly shook the massive structure. And representing the planet Earth, the announcer's voice dropped to almost a whisper. The laughter that followed was so intense that several alien species nearly collapsed from lack of oxygen. Ambassador Thisila's tentacles drooped in embarrassment for the human race. This was going to be the shortest combat trial in galactic history. Marcus walked into the arena with the same calm he brought to his classroom. He wore no armor, carried no weapons, and showed no signs of the pre-battle rituals every warrior race in the galaxy practiced. He simply walked to his designated position and waited. Vex Ara studied him with growing disbelief. Human, I give you one chance to yield. Return to your world, and tell them to send a real warrior. I have no desire to humiliate someone who's clearly been sent here by mistake. There's no mistake, Marcus replied, his voice carrying clearly across the arena despite its softness. I'm exactly who Earth chose. You're a teacher, Vex Ara spat. What could you possibly know about combat? Marcus tilted his head slightly. I teach physics, biology, and chemistry. I also teach young humans how to defend themselves and protect others. Where I come from, warriors aren't the ones who fight because they have to. They're the ones who fight because they choose to. Something in his tone made Vex Ara pause. For the first time in her career, she felt a strange sensation. Uncertainty. This human stood before her without fear, without bravado, without any of the desperate energy she'd seen in hundreds of opponents. He was simply present. The combat will begin on my signal, announced the referee, a massive crystalline being whose body reflected the arena's lights. Standard galactic rules apply. Combat ends with yield, incapacitation, or death. Vex Ara activated her plasma sword, its energy humming with deadly potential. Around the arena, betting pools closed as the last wagers were placed. The odds against the human were so astronomical that most books had stopped taking bets entirely. Marcus simply stood still, hands at his sides, breathing steadily. The referee's crystal body flashed brilliant white. Begin. Vex Ara launched herself forward with the speed of a plasma bolt, her sword aimed directly at Marcus's chest. She had decided to end this quickly, cleanly, with minimal suffering for the obviously confused human. But Marcus wasn't there when her blade arrived. He had moved just slightly to the left, and Vex Ara's momentum carried her past him. She spun around, confusion replacing confidence, to find him standing exactly where he'd been before, as if he'd never moved at all. Impossible, she muttered, then attacked again, this time with a diagonal slash that should have been unavoidable. Marcus leaned back just enough for the energy blade to pass inches from his face, then straightened up as if nothing had happened. The arena fell silent. In 3 seconds, the greatest warrior in the galaxy had missed twice against a stationary target. Vex Ara's tactical mind raced. Either this human possessed reflexes beyond anything in her database, or he had predicted her attacks before she made them. Both options were terrifying for reasons she wasn't ready to acknowledge. Lucky, she growled. Then began a combination attack that had defeated the champion of the Ridiculed system. A creature with 6 arms and 4 legs who could attack from multiple angles simultaneously. Marcus moved like water, flowing around her strikes without seeming to exert any effort. He didn't block, didn't counterattack, didn't even appear to be fighting. He simply wasn't where her weapons were trying to be. After 30 seconds of striking at empty air, Vexara stepped back, her breathing slightly elevated. Around the arena, the silence was absolute. No one was laughing anymore. "How?" she demanded. Marcus met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw something there that made her warrior's instincts scream warnings. "On my planet, we have a saying. The best fighter is one who doesn't have to fight. Philosophy won't save you," Vexara snarled. But even as she said it, she realized she was no longer certain who needed saving. Vexara changed her strategy completely. If speed and precision weren't working, she would use overwhelming force. She activated her armor's power systems, doubling her strength and speed. Energy coursed through her body as she launched into an attack pattern that had leveled buildings during the siege of Altair Prime. Marcus continued to move like he was dancing rather than fighting. Each strike that should have pulverized him missed by the smallest possible margin. He flowed around her attacks like wind around a mountain, never seeming rushed, never appearing to strain. The arena's alien spectators began to murmur in confusion. This wasn't following any combat protocol they understood. Warriors fought with strength, with speed, with superior technology. They didn't simply avoid conflict while looking completely relaxed. Captain Zara Lynn watched from the sidelines, her tactical mind analyzing every movement. "He's reading her patterns," she whispered to herself. "But that's impossible. Vexara doesn't have patterns. She adapts constantly." High Priestess Morgana leaned forward in her VIP booth. "What kind of training produces that level of spatial awareness? His movements suggest he knows where she'll be before she does." Ambassador Thysisila's tentacles had stopped writhing and were now perfectly still, a sign of intense concentration among her species. She was beginning to suspect that humanity had been vastly underestimated, and the implications terrified her. Vexara pressed her attack for 10 full minutes, using every technique she'd learned in 2 centuries of warfare. She fought like someone trying to hit smoke with a hammer, growing more frustrated with each passing second. Her armor's power systems began overheating from the constant maximum output. Finally, she stopped, stepping back and deactivating her sword. The arena fell into absolute silence. "What are you?" she demanded. Marcus remained perfectly still, not even breathing hard. "I'm a teacher. Teachers don't move like that. On Earth, they do if they need to." For the first time, Marcus's expression shifted slightly. "I teach at a school in a difficult area. Sometimes I have to break up fights between kids who are scared, angry, and hurt. The most important thing I learned is that violence usually means someone doesn't know how to communicate what they need." Vexara stared at him. "You're treating this like I'm one of your students, aren't you?" Marcus asked gently. "You're clearly frustrated and trying to prove something to everyone watching. That's not so different from a teenager acting out because they feel like nobody understands them." The insult should have sent Vexara into a berserker rage. Instead, something about his tone made her pause. There was no mockery in his voice, no condescension. He spoke like someone who genuinely cared about understanding her motivation. "I am the greatest warrior in galactic history," she said slowly. "I believe you," Marcus replied. "The question is, why do you need to be?" Around the arena, alien species who had never agreed on anything found themselves united in confusion. Combat trials weren't supposed to include psychological counseling. Vexara activated her sword again. But this time her attacks were different. Instead of trying to overpower Marcus, she began testing him, probing for weaknesses with surgical precision. She had fought thinking beings before, warriors who used strategy and tactics rather than brute force. But Marcus continued to move like he knew her intentions before she formed them. Worse, he began to do something no opponent had ever done. He started talking to her during combat. "You're angry about something," he observed as he avoided a thrust that would have pierced starship armor. "Not at me specifically. This anger is older." "Silence," Vexara snapped, increasing her attack speed. "The way you hold your weapon suggests you learned to fight very young," Marcus continued, his voice completely calm as he flowed around her strikes. Someone taught you that strength was the only thing that mattered. Someone made you feel like you had to prove yourself constantly. Vexara's next attack went wide by several inches, the first truly inaccurate strike she'd made. "You know nothing about my life." "I know you're tired," Marcus said softly. "I can see it in your stance. How long have you been the greatest warrior? How long since you've been allowed to be anything else?" For a microsecond, Vexara's guard dropped completely. In that moment, Marcus could have ended the fight with any number of techniques. Instead, he simply stood still and waited for her to recover. "Why didn't you attack?" she whispered. "Because you weren't ready," Marcus replied. "Where I come from, real strength means protecting others, not defeating them. Even when someone is trying to hurt you, your job is to help them if you can." The arena erupted in chaos. Alien species throughout the galaxy began arguing among themselves about what they were witnessing. Several combat experts demanded the trial be stopped because it wasn't following any recognizable pattern. But Ambassador Thys-Ela raised a tentacle for silence. "Continue," she ordered. Something in her expression suggested she was beginning to understand what Earth had really sent them. Vexara lowered her weapon partially. "You're playing with me. No being is naturally this skilled. Without training." "Oh, I've had plenty of training," Marcus admitted. 12 years of martial arts, military service, years of teaching teenagers who could probably bench press small vehicles, but the most important lesson didn't come from any of that. "What lesson?" "My daughter taught me," Marcus said simply. "She's 7 years old, and she asked me once why grown-ups always try to solve problems by being louder and angrier than each other. I couldn't give her a good answer, so I started looking for a better way." Vexara felt something crack inside her chest. "You have offspring?" "A daughter named Sophie. She's probably watching this broadcast right now, staying up past her bedtime because Dad's on TV talking to aliens." Marcus smiled, and for the first time, Vexara saw something in his expression that had nothing to do with combat. "She made me promise to try to make friends instead of enemies." "This is a combat trial, not a diplomatic meeting." "Is it?" Marcus asked. "Or is it a test to see if humanity is worthy of joining your community? Because if that's the case, fighting you isn't going to prove anything, but maybe showing you who we really are might." Vexara raised her sword again, but her movements were slower now, less certain. "You're trying to confuse me with words." "I'm trying to understand why the galaxy's greatest warrior seems so unhappy." The observation hit like a physical blow. Vexara had spent centuries perfecting her ability to hide emotions, to project pure strength and confidence. No one had ever seen through her facade so completely. "I am happy," she insisted. "Are you?" Marcus tilted his head. "When was the last time someone spoke to you like you were a person, instead of a weapon?" Vexara's sword arm began to tremble. Around the arena, her followers watched in stunned silence as their unshakable commander showed the first sign of vulnerability in her entire career. I can't," she started, then stopped. Marcus took a step forward, moving for the first time since the combat began. But instead of attacking, he did something that sent shockwaves throughout the galactic community. He offered his hand to help her lower her weapon. "My name is Marcus," he said gently. "I'm a teacher, a father, and someone who thinks you might be the loneliest person I've ever met. Would you like to talk instead of fight?" Vexara stared at the offered hand for what felt like an eternity. In her entire life, no one had ever made such a gesture. Enemies tried to kill her. Allies feared her. Subordinates obeyed her. But no one had ever simply offered kindness without wanting something in return. "This violates every combat protocol in existence," she whispered. "Good," Marcus replied. "Maybe it's time to write new ones." Around the arena, the silence was deafening. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched through live broadcasts as their understanding of humanity shifted completely. This wasn't the weak, backward species they'd been mocking. This was something entirely different. Something that prioritized connection over conquest. Slowly, Vexara deactivated her plasma sword. The weapon that had carved through entire enemy fleets powered down with a soft whisper. She looked at Marcus's extended hand, then at his face, searching for any sign of deception or manipulation. She found only patience and genuine concern. "You're not afraid of me," she said, wonder creeping into her voice. "Should I be?" Marcus asked. "You're clearly skilled, powerful, and capable of ending this fight instantly. But you're also someone who's been carrying the weight of everyone's expectations for so long that you've forgotten how to be yourself." Vexara's hand moved toward his without conscious thought. When their fingers touched, something extraordinary happened throughout the arena. Every warrior present felt a shift in their understanding of what strength actually meant. "I haven't spoken to anyone as an equal in over 50 years, Vexara admitted quietly. "Then we have a lot of catching up to do." Marcus smiled. Ambassador Tissila rose from her position. Her voice carried across the arena with newfound respect. "Combat trial, suspended pending evaluation of unprecedented circumstances." The alien spectators erupted in confused chatter. Several species demanded immediate clarification about what had just occurred. The draconian general who had mocked Earth earlier was noticeably silent, his expression thoughtful rather than dismissive. Captain Zara Lynn approached cautiously, her hand near her weapon but not threatening. "Commander, what are your orders?" Vexara looked at her longtime second-in-command, then at Marcus, then at the thousands of faces staring down at them. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what military protocol demanded. "Stand down," she said finally. "I need to understand something." Marcus turned to address the arena, his teacher's instincts taking over. "People of the galaxy, Earth didn't send me here to prove we're the strongest species. We sent me to show you who we are when strength isn't enough." High Priestess Morgana activated her communication array. "Human, explain your species' approach to conflict resolution." "We're still learning," Marcus answered honestly. "For most of our history, we solved problems the same way everyone else does, with bigger weapons and louder voices. But we've started to realize that real strength means knowing when not to fight." "That sounds like weakness," challenged Acrylic's military leader. "Does it?" Marcus gestured toward Vexara. "Your greatest warrior just spent 15 minutes trying to defeat someone who refused to fight back. Which one of us demonstrated more control?" The question rippled through the arena like a shockwave. Combat specialists who had studied warfare for centuries suddenly found their fundamental assumptions challenged. Vexara stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's acoustics. "This human did something I thought was impossible. He defeated me without striking a single blow." "You were not defeated," protested the referee. "Combat was suspended, not concluded." "No," Vexara shook her head. "I was defeated the moment I realized that everything I thought I knew about strength was wrong." She turned to face the galactic representatives in the VIP sections. "How many worlds have I conquered in the name of proving superiority? How many beings have I defeated to maintain the reputation of being unbeatable?" "You brought glory to the sisterhood," Zaralin said uncertainly. "Did I?" Vexara's voice carried a sadness that seemed to echo through the arena. "Or did I just perpetuate the cycle that turned me into a weapon instead of a person?" Marcus stepped beside her, his presence somehow making her seem more human despite her alien appearance. "On Earth, we have a concept called teaching moments. When someone learns something important about themselves or the world, I think today is one of those moments for all of us." Ambassador Thesila's tentacles moved in patterns that indicated deep thought among her species. "Human Marcus, what would your people propose as an alternative to combat trials for species evaluation?" "Conversation," Marcus replied immediately. "Working together on shared problems, learning about each other's cultures, values, and dreams. Competition through cooperation rather than domination." "Impossible," snorted the draconian general. "How do you measure a species' worth without testing their warriors?" "Why do you need to measure worth at all?" Marcus asked. "Why not measure contribution instead? What can each species offer to make the galaxy better for everyone?" The question hung in the arena's recycled air like a challenge to everything galactic civilization had built itself upon. For millennia, their society had been based on hierarchy, on the strong ruling the weak, on proving superiority through conquest. Vexera found herself speaking before she realized it. "What would you have done if I had successfully struck you?" "Probably bled a lot," Marcus admitted with a slight grin. "But I would have kept trying to find a way to connect with you. My daughter Sophie always tells me that everyone is fighting some kind of battle we can't see. Some battles just look more obvious than others. Your offspring sounds wise. 7-year-olds usually are. They haven't learned yet that things are supposed to be complicated." Around the arena, something unprecedented was happening. Alien species that had been preparing for what they assumed would be a quick, amusing execution were instead witnessing the birth of an entirely new approach to interspecies relations. The crystal referee stepped forward, its body reflecting the arena's lights in patterns that indicated confusion. "How do we conclude this trial?" "Standard protocols provide no guidance for this situation." Marcus looked at Vexera, then at the thousands of beings watching them. "Maybe we conclude it by starting something new. Vexera, would you be willing to visit Earth, not as a conqueror or a warrior, but as someone learning about a different way to live? You would invite me to your homeworld after I tried to defeat you?" "You were doing your job," Marcus shrugged. "I'm doing mine. My job is teaching people that there are always more options than we first realize." Vexera looked around the arena, seeing it as if for the first time. Thousands of beings watched her, waiting for her decision. For centuries, she had been their symbol of strength through domination. Now she had the chance to become something else entirely. "I accept your invitation," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The arena erupted in chaos. Some species cheered, others protested, and many simply sat in stunned silence trying to process what they had witnessed. Ambassador Thisila activated her official communication array. "By the authority granted to me by the Galactic Council, I hereby recommend that the species known as humanity be granted immediate full membership in the Galactic Federation." "On what grounds?" demanded the Draconian general. "On the grounds that they have demonstrated something we have never seen before. The ability to win without fighting, to lead without conquering, and to teach without preaching." Thisila's tentacles moved in patterns of deep respect. "They have shown us that strength and wisdom are not the same thing, and that true power lies in knowing when not to use it." Marcus stepped forward one final time, addressing the entire galaxy through the arena's broadcasting systems. "People of the stars, Earth doesn't want to join your community to prove we're better than anyone else. We want to join because we believe that together, we can all become better than we are alone." Vexera raised her hand, speaking with the authority of someone who had never been questioned. "The Sisterhood of Valara officially supports Earth's membership in the Galactic Federation. Furthermore, we volunteer to serve as cultural ambassadors between our worlds." As the arena erupted in discussion and debate, Marcus quietly activated his communication device to send a message home. "Sophie, Dad's coming home soon. I made some new friends today. I think you'd like them. And yes, I kept my promise. No fighting, just talking." The response came back almost instantly in a 7-year-old's excited voice. "Did you really make friends with aliens, Daddy?" "The best kind," Marcus replied, looking at Vexera, who was surrounded by her warriors, already beginning to discuss what their future might look like. "The kind who help you become who you're supposed to be." In the months that followed, the Galactic Combat Arena was converted into the Galactic Communications Center. Species that had settled disputes through warfare for millennia began experimenting with Earth's approach of dialogue and cooperation. It didn't solve every problem, but it opened possibilities that no one had imagined before. And somewhere in a small school in California, a 7-year-old girl told her classmates that her dad had taught the entire galaxy something new. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to fight. The galaxy, it turned out, was ready to learn.